Being the daughter of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge is no ordinary childhood. For Princess Charlotte, every move is watched, every word noted. Her life plays out under a public spotlight, where privacy is a rare luxury. And yet, despite the pressure that comes with her title, those close to her describe the young royal as possessing a gentle charm, shy, yet playful. In many ways, she mirrors her late grandmother, Princess Diana, both in spirit and in kindness. But even for a princess, school can be tough. And what happened next left everyone speechless. At Lamrook School, a prestigious institution known for its traditions and distinguished alumni, students returned from their summer holidays eager to begin a new academic term. Among them was Princess Charlotte, carrying a backpack like any other child, walking through the gates without fanfare. Despite her royal heritage, Charlotte was well liked for her down-to-earth attitude. She participated in school plays, group projects, and after-school clubs. She never asked for special treatment, and never acted like she deserved it. But as the term unfolded, something unexpected happened. Something that would leave a lasting mark not just on Charlotte, but on the entire school. In the second week of term, a new student arrived at Lamrook, Jasper, a transfer from another elite school. He had a reputation, and it didn't take long to see why. Bold, loud, and often crossing the line into disrespect, he quickly drew attention. Most students kept their distance. Charlotte had no interaction with him. Until one afternoon. She was walking alone down a quiet corridor when Jasper approached. At first, it seemed like casual conversation. But his mocking tone soon turned sharp. He questioned her achievements, hinted that her royal title earned her special treatment, and ended with a sarcastic bow. Charlotte said nothing. She simply walked away, calm and composed. The silence that followed was heavy. Some students laughed nervously. Others looked away. But the remarks didn't stop. Over the next few days, Jasper's comments became more frequent, always laced with subtle mockery. During a lesson, after Charlotte was praised, he muttered just loud enough, "Of course she did. She's royalty." The mood shifted. What once passed as humor began to feel targeted and mean-spirited. Even students who had once laughed at his jokes began to pull back. "It's like he enjoys making others feel small," Emily whispered during art class. At lunch, Charlotte sat with friends, smiling gently, her voice soft as ever. But something had changed. There was a quiet distance in her eyes. She never spoke of Jasper, never asked for help. But the adults noticed. Teachers exchanged glances, and staff began paying closer attention. The calm Charlotte clung to had become her armor, and behind it, something deeper was quietly unfolding. The school counselor, gently and without pressure, checked in with Charlotte. Her response was steady and simple. She was fine. But even with her calm front, the administration knew silence didn't always mean peace. They decided it was time to address the situation more directly. That same week, one of the older students, Thomas, a quiet observer who had seen more than most, approached a teacher after class. He didn't dramatize anything. He didn't exaggerate. "It's not right," he said plainly. "She never says anything back, but he keeps doing it." That was the moment everything shifted. The school acted swiftly, though without spectacle. Jasper was called into the headmaster's office, an office known not just for its polished furniture but for its no-nonsense occupant. Charlotte was also invited to speak. She didn't embellish. She didn't cry. But she spoke with quiet clarity. She wasn't wounded, she said, but she had felt belittled, disrespected. Rather than hold a formal disciplinary hearing, the school chose a more deliberate path, one rooted in reflection, not punishment. The headmaster spoke firmly about empathy, respect, and personal accountability. Jasper was asked to write a statement on what those words meant to him. It was a common practice at the school, one designed to spark introspection, regardless of the student's background or title. But even after that, the air remained heavy. Jasper's demeanor shifted, slightly. He no longer joked as loudly. His shoulders were a little lower. But the tension lingered. Some classmates began to avoid him. Others whispered behind his back. As for Charlotte, she remained composed, but her usual spark seemed dimmer. She spoke less in class, stared out the window more often. The atmosphere had changed. By week's end, the story had made its rounds. It traveled through hallways, whispered in lockers and lunch queues. Some students speculated Jasper might be expelled. Others wondered why Charlotte hadn't spoken out sooner or fought back. A few, misunderstanding the weight of the situation entirely, started mimicking Jasper's old behavior, thinking it made them look bold or edgy. Then, an unexpected pairing. During a class project, the teacher randomly assigned groups, and Charlotte and Jasper ended up side by side. The classroom buzz faded into an awkward hush. At their table, Charlotte focused on the assignment. Jasper tapped his pencil, stealing glances but saying very little. Midway through, he muttered something under his breath, too low for anyone else to hear, but loud enough for Charlotte. She paused, looked at him, and said nothing. She returned to the task at hand. Later that afternoon, during break, Charlotte sat alone on a bench in the courtyard. A soft breeze stirred her hair. Then Anna appeared, gentle, kind-hearted Anna, who quietly took a seat beside her and handed her a snack. They didn't bring up Jasper. They didn't talk about anything heavy. Instead, they chatted about weekend plans, homework, and a new book Anna was reading. And yet, that small moment mattered more than anyone could know. It reminded Charlotte that she wasn't alone, even when it felt that way. Behind the scenes, teachers continued to stay vigilant. The school counselor organized a voluntary session on kindness and respect. Posters were pinned in corridors. A soft ripple of change was beginning. Attendance wasn't required, but many showed up. Because while one incident had stirred discomfort, it had also sparked something deeper. A conversation that was long overdue. Some students came forward, most didn't. And Jasper? He wasn't among them. Over the next several days, his behavior didn't just continue, it evolved. What had once been obvious, attention-seeking taunts soon shifted into something more deliberate, more calculated. He had figured out something dangerous. Charlotte wouldn't fight back. And that, somehow, only fueled him further. No longer interested in performing for the crowd, Jasper began targeting her in moments no one else was around. He waited for quiet hallways, corners of classrooms, or when a teacher's back was turned. That's when he struck. His words sharper, quieter, designed to sting in solitude. One quiet afternoon in the art room, Charlotte was painting when Jasper passed behind her and whispered, "Even your painting looks privileged." She froze mid-stroke, cheeks flushing, but said nothing, just as she always did. Later that week, during PE, the teacher paired them for a running drill. Jasper jogged over with a grin. "Try to keep up, princess," he muttered. Moments in, he dropped back and called out, "You can run alone. You're used to being special." A few students chuckled uncomfortably. Charlotte kept running, eyes ahead, face tense. The next day, he brushed past her in the hallway, shoulder grazing hers. "Oops," he said without stopping. In the library, he mocked her with a sarcastic wave and mouthed, "Your Highness." She turned away, pretending not to notice, but inside, her stomach turned. The worst came on a rainy Friday. As Charlotte opened her umbrella, Jasper walked past and muttered, "Must be nice to have a whole country bend for you." He crouched to tie his shoe, pretending he hadn't said anything, but the comment stuck, sharp and lingering. That evening, Charlotte sat on her bedroom floor, school bag spilled open. She stared into nothing, tears welling quietly. It wasn't just the words, it was the slow unraveling of everything she thought was safe. She hadn't told anyone. Not yet. She still hoped it would pass. But in her heart, she knew. It was only getting worse. Then, one day during lunch, it escalated. She returned to her seat to find a sticky note stuck to the top of her desk. In big, jagged letters, it read, "Born to be better than the rest. Get over yourself." There was no name, no clue who had left it. But when Charlotte glanced across the room, Jasper was already watching her. His face was blank. No grin, no wave, just that same cold, steady stare. He didn't have to say anything. The message had already been sent. During one seemingly ordinary music class, Jasper leaned over and muttered under his breath, just loud enough for those nearby to catch it, "I wonder if she gets private lessons from the Queen's choir." The teacher didn't hear it, but two girls sitting in the row ahead did. They didn't respond. They simply looked at Charlotte, then turned back to their books. That glance, brief, pitiful, loaded, was becoming all too familiar. Then came the science project incident. Charlotte had spent the previous night carefully constructing a small model volcano for her assignment. She packed it gently in a cardboard box and carried it to class with quiet pride, placing it in the corner of the room before heading off to break. When she returned, something had changed. The volcano lay knocked over, not broken completely, but clearly tampered with. The vinegar and baking soda were spilled, the setup ruined. A few students gathered around, whispering. One of them muttered, "That's awful." But no one named names. Charlotte stood silently beside the mess. Her hands were clasped in front of her, her gaze fixed on the table. Moments later, Jasper walked in, gave the wrecked volcano a glance, and said with a smirk, "Looks like royalty isn't earthquake-proof." Then he walked past her as though nothing had happened. Charlotte didn't flinch. Not then. But that night, in the quiet of her room, the tears came. Not loud sobs. Just silent tears in the dark, the kind you cry when you don't know how to explain the hurt. Over the next few days, the school climate shifted. Not everyone was cruel, but many stayed away, not out of malice, but fear. "I like Charlotte," one girl whispered to a friend, "but I don't want to get dragged into drama." And so the isolation deepened. Jasper's tactics became more subtle. Notes left on her desk with twisted rhymes and cruel humor. Little Miss Royal sat on a throne. Even queens can fall. One day in art class, he accidentally knocked water onto her sketchbook. The teacher turned around at the commotion. Jasper shrugged. It was an accident. Charlotte didn't argue. She just quietly closed the soaked pages and said nothing. One afternoon, as Charlotte stood by her locker, Jasper leaned in close, his tone flat, unshaken. "If you tell anyone," he said, "they'll think you're making it up. You're you, and I'm just a regular kid. No one believes the spoiled ones." And then he walked away, leaving her stunned. That, more than any prank or taunt, was his final move, planting the kind of doubt that makes someone question their own reality. It wasn't about bruises. It was about invisibility. About shrinking Charlotte into someone smaller than the legacy she carried. By now, Charlotte had changed. She spoke less in class. Her laughter faded. She moved slower in the halls, as if carrying a weight no one could see. At home, she was still polite, still gentle, but quieter, softer, dimmed. And then, something happened that changed everything. Normally, incidents like this might have stayed within the school's walls. But fate intervened. That evening, Prince William learned what had been happening. There was no press release, no palace statement. The next morning, he arrived quietly at Lamrook School. No entourage, no flashing cameras, just a father with questions. Staff was startled by his unannounced visit. He asked for a private meeting with the headmaster and explained calmly that he wasn't there to cause a scene, but to understand. He listened carefully as staff walked him through their accounts. He read the incident reports. And then, with steady resolve, William made one request. He wanted to speak with Jasper. When Jasper walked into the room, he was uncertain, expecting a lecture, a reprimand, maybe even royal fury. But what followed wasn't a confrontation. It was a conversation. William didn't raise his voice. He didn't scold. Instead, he sat across from Jasper and simply began to talk. Instead of scolding, William asked questions about school, past experiences, and what made Jasper act out. Caught off guard, Jasper admitted he felt out of place and overwhelmed. He didn't know how to act around someone like Charlotte and said he was trying to be funny, but it came out wrong. William listened, then shared stories from his own childhood, moments of feeling lost and misunderstood. He reminded Jasper that respect is universal, and that Charlotte, like everyone else, came to school to learn, not to be singled out. This wasn't about punishment, it was about growth. Jasper apologized, first to William, and then to Charlotte directly. She responded with a quiet nod. No headlines, no fanfare, just two students making peace. Still, something shifted. Word of Prince William's visit spread, and while the details remained unclear, the atmosphere around Charlotte changed. Teachers were more attentive. Younger students showed more respect. And Charlotte herself? She remained grounded, gracious, calm, and quietly stronger. Classmates began to return. Anna invited her to a book group. Thomas asked to be science partners. Emily left a heartfelt note in Charlotte's backpack. You handled it all with so much grace. You inspire me. As for Jasper, he stayed under the radar. He didn't transform overnight, but he started changing. Small steps, quieter choices, and a little more kindness than before. Jasper began to change. Not dramatically, but noticeably. He raised his hand more in class, joined group activities without sarcasm, and no longer hovered around Charlotte. Though they weren't friends, he was no longer a source of discomfort. In one art class, he dropped a palette near Charlotte's desk. She flinched, startled, but he immediately apologized, softly and sincerely. She nodded and calmly returned to her painting. Prince William, meanwhile, stayed in close contact with the school. Without demands, he offered thoughtful suggestions. Soon, student-led workshops on empathy and inclusion were introduced. Charlotte, hesitant at first, eventually co-led a session with Anna titled Creating Space for Everyone. She didn't share personal details but spoke about how small words can leave deep marks, and how silence often speaks volumes. One younger girl raised her hand and said, "Sometimes people are mean because they're scared." Charlotte responded gently, "Sometimes they just need to be shown a better way." After the session, a few students thanked her. One boy even apologized for staying silent when others mocked her. "I didn't know what to do," he said. Charlotte smiled. "It's okay. We all learn." Jasper's growth wasn't perfect. He still stumbled, but the environment around him had shifted. The class no longer laughed at cruel jokes. He began spending time with classmates who valued sincerity. One of them, Felix, invited him to the robotics club. There, Jasper discovered a new outlet for his energy. Together, they built a robotic hand and showcased it at the school exhibition. As for Charlotte, her confidence returned. She laughed more, volunteered at the library, and mentored younger students. One afternoon, during a reading session, a small girl asked, "Are you really a princess?" Charlotte smiled. "Sometimes," she said, "but today I'm just your reader." Moved by the school's journey, the headmaster launched a new tradition, Respect Week. For 5 days, students celebrated kindness, unity, and empathy. Halls filled with artwork, quotes, and stories. One wall was covered in sticky notes sharing personal experiences. Among them was one from Jasper. "I used to make people uncomfortable because I didn't know how to be myself. Someone showed me a better way." Charlotte recognized the handwriting but said nothing. She didn't need to. By the end of the term, Lamuk felt changed. Not perfect, but stronger. Students had grown, not just in knowledge, but in empathy. Charlotte never sought attention, but her quiet resilience had left its mark. On the last day before the break, She walked through the hallway with books in hand. Jasper passed by. Their eyes met. He gave a small nod. She returned it. Nothing more. But in that silent moment, years of lessons were understood. Lamuk had become more than just a school. It had become a place shaped by quiet courage and hard-won growth. Like and subscribe the channel for more updates.